This week on The Startup Life.
For many years before I won the competition, I had it in my mind that if I was able to win it, I would try to turn it into a business.
All right, Startup Nation, so let's take flight with Chester Santos, speaker, author, and international man of memory. The Startup Life begins now.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
Hey, Startup Nation, do you enjoy the startup life? Now you can let the world know with gear from the show. Choose from the label yourself, make your own luck, and Making Money t-shirts to tell your story of your path of entrepreneurship. Click the link in the show notes to purchase. All right, Startup Nation, so I hope you're ready to receive some value today. We have a super guest here in the building today. We got Chester Santos in the building today. What's going on, Chester?
I'm excited to be on the show. Thanks for having me, Dominic.
Awesome stuff. Are you ready to pour some knowledge into Startup Nation today?
I am so ready to do this, yes.
Awesome stuff. So first things first, man, let's hear your story on your path of entrepreneurship, but let's do it a little differently, man, because I hear that you have a theme song, right? So let's go ahead and cue that theme song on a little bit and now tell us your story and the story behind the theme song you got, man.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, so thanks for playing the theme song there. It's part of an intro video that will play before I take the stage. I give speeches and presentations, and before I get on the stage, there is a video that will play containing that theme song as well as a bunch of my TV clips as well to give the audience a taste for my background and what they're about to learn from the presentation. I had that theme song developed for me by a branding company. So a while back, I hired a company to rebrand me as the International Man of Memory, and part of that was coming up with a theme song for the International Man of Memory. So that was it.
Okay, cool. Thank you for sharing that. So, man, now I know that you have, you continuously train all the time, right? I saw that on average, you train about 30 minutes a day, but like if you're getting ready for a competition, man, you kind of goes to a few hours a day, man. So what does that training look like, when you're talking about memorization and getting ready for competitions and stuff like that? What's your routine?
Yeah, so that was my training regimen that you read about. It was that intense and probably even more intense on certain days when I was competing. I no longer compete in memory competitions.
Okay.
I'm now more focused really on the business aspect.
For sure.
However, when I was training to compete in the USA National Memory Championship, which I eventually managed to win, I was memorizing, in certain cases, hours per day, sheets of computer-generated random digits, decks of playing cards. I would memorize poems from poetry.com because those were all events that I would have to tackle in the National Memory Championship. It used to be held once a year in New York City at the Con Edison Auditorium when I was competing, and now it's held at MIT, the University MIT, each year. It consists of many different events. One is the fastest time to memorize a deck of playing cards. So you will have a judge in front of you. They'll shuffle up a deck of playing cards. You'll have a maximum of 5 minutes, but the fastest time wins. They'll stop the timer when you're done or the 5 minutes is up, whichever sooner. then you'll be given a brand new deck of cards, and you have a maximum of 5 minutes to arrange that deck of cards from memory into the same order as the first deck that you saw, and then they will put the deck side by side and flip through all the cards to make sure that every single card matches. I used to be able to do that at one point in less than 90 seconds when I was really training hard. Another event is memorizing computer-generated random digits. So it's the longest sequence that you can memorize perfectly in 5 minutes. I, at one point, was over 130 digits perfectly in 5 minutes. We also memorized hundreds of names in about 15 minutes, a poem that's written specifically for the competition. So there's no chance that anyone has seen the poem before. You have about 15 minutes to memorize a 50-line poem, not only word for word, but also every punctuation mark. You have to indicate if a word was bold or italic. So it's even more difficult than word for word. And
that's crazy.
The whole thing, yeah, it's pretty crazy competition. And the whole thing concludes with the final event, which is memorizing 2 decks of cards at the same time in 5 minutes. So that's the USA National Memory Championship, which I did manage to win back in 2008. And since winning that more than 10 years ago, at this point, I've spent those 10 plus years turning this into a business, training other people around the world in the subset of techniques that helped me to win that competition and that I feel would most benefit people in their career, in their personal life, and also in school.
Gotcha. Thank you for sharing that. I was going to talk about this later, but since you already brought it up, man, let's dive into it now. So, take us back to 2008, man, because I know there was a few times where, you had like a whole bunch of top 5 finishes, but that 2008 is when you pulled it out and became the U.S. memory champion, right? So how did you feel going into that particular competition? Did you feel a little bit more confident in that competition because you trained a little bit harder? And what was that feeling when you actually did win, man? Tell us about that experience.
Yeah, so the first time I ever competed in the USA National Memory Championship, I took 3rd place. And so I felt that I could win it, and I kept finishing in the top 3 many times, and I knew that I could win it, and it was frustrating because I was so close. And there's a big difference in, as it is the case in any sort of competition around the world, no matter what it might be, we always remember the first place, and not very many people remember who got 3rd place that particular year. So I was really obsessed at one point with winning it, and finally I made it my mission in life after not winning in 2007. I really just got more serious than ever in as far as my training, and I maybe was over prepared in 2008, and that I won it pretty easily in 2008. I crushed people in a lot of the events that year because I was just, I really, the best way to describe it was just my obsession and mission in life to win the competition that year. So I trained harder than ever before. I revamped some of my systems to systems that just they were more powerful, but really took a lot more training time to implement and to get down. But obviously they worked out well.
Hold up, Startup Nation. We have got to talk about this. When Chester talks about he got to a point where he was getting a 3rd place finish or getting close to first, but not getting the ultimate prize, and then all of a sudden he just became obsessed with it. That is what your company is looking for from you. Look, I get it. You have many distractions in life. You got a lot of things going on, and as an entrepreneur, you have many hats and what have you, right? But there comes a point in time on your path to entrepreneurship, and Chester just explained this, where you no, never again. I am coming home with that trophy. I'm coming home with that targeted dollar revenue amount in mind, that target profit dollar amount in mind, and I'm going to do it. And so when you become obsessed, you become not just necessarily passionate, but you become obsessed with that goal in mind. Oh, Startup Nation, you become unstoppable. Just like how Chester said, like it was almost laughable how he won the U.S. Memory Championship because he became so obsessed. That's how it can be for you and your business and your competition. You can become so obsessed that it becomes laughable how you crush your competition. So if you can reach that level of obsession, Startup Nation, oh my, the things you will accomplish. Let's get back to Chester.
Gotcha. You just went straight beast mode 2008, huh?
Pretty much. That's that's what happened, and it worked. So I won, and I was able to right away. I mean, just like the next day, I was on CNN, and ever since then, I've been able to get booked for a lot of different TV shows, newspapers, magazines, because having that title shows expertise in improving your ability to remember things.
For sure. Thank you for sharing that. So let's go back really quickly, man. I want to hear the origin story. Like, so how did you, because nobody just gets up like, you know what? I'm going to be the U.S. memory champion one day, right? So like, how did this come to be? Like, did somebody see something in you? Did you always just have like this ability to have a great memory and you trained it and made it better? Like, where did it come from, man?
To be honest, it was completely random
Okay.
how this all came about.
All right.
I had just been one night flipping channels, and I happened to catch a segment on ABC's 2020,
Yeah.
that nighttime news program, and they had a big segment that night on the USA National Memory Championship, and it really sparked my interest. Yeah, if I hadn't flipped to that channel that night, I wouldn't be doing the interview today about memory. It's just really random how it happened. I caught a segment on that competition, and it sparked my interest because growing up, people had often commented to me, "Wow, Chester, you have a really good memory." So it was just in the back of my head that I probably had a better than average memory. So it really sparked my interest when I saw that competition, and I then started looking into the competition in more detail. And I quickly found out that although I did have a really good memory, I was nowhere near that level. I was not able to memorize decks of cards in minutes, hundreds of names and numbers in minutes. So that is when I started doing a lot of research into ways to really improve your ability to remember various types of information. And I experimented with all sorts of things that I read about in books, that I found in online research. I played around with many different techniques. I found what worked best for me personally. I stuck to training myself in that subset of techniques until eventually I was able to win the U.S. Memory Championship. And then again, I've gone on after that. I've spent the last almost 11 years now training other people around the world in the subset of techniques that I feel can be most effective to help them in their career, personal life, and school.
Gotcha. That's crazy, man. So you just so happened to flipping channels and come across 2020. And from there, unbeknownst to you at that point, your whole life changed. That's crazy.
Yeah, completely changed my life. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Chester. I appreciate that for sure. So, look, man, you win the competition in 2008. And, I guess I'm curious, man, when was the point that you figured out, or did somebody bring it to your attention, or whatever the case may be? It's like, you know what? We can turn this into some type of entrepreneurial venture or business. Tell us about that process. What was that moment to where you're like, you know what? I can turn this into something?
Yeah, I had always, well, not always, but for many years before I won the competition, I had it in my mind that if I was able to win it, I would try to turn it into a business, because I had heard of a couple of other competitors that had won the competition and they got invited, for instance, to give a speech at a conference or something like that. And they told me what they got paid to give that speech, and it kind of blew my mind.
Gotcha.
So sometimes to give a keynote speech at a conference, they'll pay you like $12,000 plus dollars plus travel expenses to talk for 1 hour on your topic. So when I heard that, I was just thinking to myself, wow, there's incredible potential with this, but I really needed to have that title in order to get all of the media exposure and credibility, basically to help me build a platform so that people would book me for various things to talk about memory. It's just very helpful to have that title of United States memory champion. So that's when I became, when I kept getting third, I just got more and more focused because I knew that I had the potential to win it, get that title, and then at least try to turn things into a business. But I will say it wasn't as easy as I thought.
Fair enough.
It wasn't as easy as I had pictured. I was thinking, okay, I'm going to win this thing. I'm going to be on all these TV shows, be in all these magazines, and people are just going to start giving me money to teach them how to remember and, book me for speeches. But it just wasn't that easy. And also I won in 2008, which, if everyone will remember, wasn't the best.
Right.
It was a pretty bad time.
Absolutely.
In terms of our economy. So it really wasn't the best time probably to start a new business. When I won the competition and immediately was on a bunch of shows, I just knowing myself, I don't recommend going about things the way that I did it. If you want to start your own business, go into some sort of entrepreneurial venture, I don't necessarily recommend doing things the way that I did, but just knowing myself, I knew that I had to give this 100% of my attention, or I never would have achieved the level that I'm at right now. 10 years later, I wouldn't have made it this far if I didn't. I just up and quit my job and went into this full time. So I was working full time as a software engineer for at first a company in the Silicon Valley area, and then later for a company in San Francisco itself, working full time as a software engineer. I just quit that when I started getting booked on all these shows and for different newspapers, magazines. I figured that I needed to really take advantage of that media wave.
For sure.
So I just quit my job like 2 weeks after winning the competition. Probably it would be smarter for a lot of people to just start their new venture part-time. But I knew that if I didn't act then and I just tried to do things part-time, just knowing my own personality, it would be different for different people. But given how my mind works, I knew that I wouldn't make it to where I was today if I didn't just dive headfirst into it.
Gotcha. Thank you for sharing that, Chester. And Startup Nation, that's something we talk about quite often on the Startup Life, brought to you by the Binge Podcast Network. We talk about, just like Chester said, knowing yourself. Like, look, if you're going to quit your job and you're going to quit your job, if it's in your personality to kind of slowly phase it out over time, let's do that. But if you're going to be at your job and you're always thinking about that thing, maybe you do like Chester and really just go full frontal and go all out 100% with it. But what he's ultimately saying is know yourself, know what your risk tolerance is and stuff like that. So Chester, I appreciate you pointing that out for sure.
Yeah, no problem. I think it's something important, definitely, to just make people aware of. It was not easy, even having the big media wave and that title of U.S. memory champion, and really having the years and years of expertise with memory training. It wasn't necessarily easy to start making money from training people and giving speeches and presentations as a business. Granted, again, a factor, it may have been a big factor. The time that I started, 2008, was not really the best time to start
Right.
something like this. But it was a struggle. I mean, for the first few years, at least for the first 3 to 4 years, it was really, really a struggle even to make ends meet. I quickly went through, I had a good savings as a software engineer,
Mm-hmm.
but I quickly went through that, and it was really a struggle for quite some time. But now, everything's going as I had originally envisioned, but it took a while to get here.
Gotcha. And I appreciate you pointing that out too, because a lot of times we get, some of us as entrepreneurs, we get into our business and we have this big moment to where there's this big win and we get booked on, for interviews on podcasts and newspapers and stuff like that. We feel like at that point, oh, we've made it. But no, you point out a very important point, Chester. They're like, no, there's still work to be done. Even after that point, even if you do get that credibility and stuff like that. So I appreciate you sharing that for sure, man. That's very important for Startup Nation to know. Absolutely. So let me ask you this, man, because you've done a lot of amazing live demonstrations. I just kind of want to point a few of them out here where you've correctly named 200 plus audience members after hearing the name only once. You've memorized perfectly and recalled 100 plus digit sequence of numbers like you kind of mentioned earlier. You have a perfect recall of the United States Congress, which that's crazy. And I think I read somewhere where not only the Congress, but their district, the state and all that other stuff. And also like a perfect recall the Kentucky Derby results since 1875. And those are just absolutely amazing accomplishments, man. So tell us about that first demonstration you did, like it's on TV, a speaking engagement, whatever the case may be. Were you nervous? And also tell Startup Nation how those demonstrations have helped your branding and building your brand.
Yeah, so I've done a number of demonstrations over the years. The idea is to demonstrate to people what is possible with human memory when you just take the time to train it. Because a lot of people out there think that you are just born with a certain level of memory ability and then it can't really be improved. And the point of my demonstrations is to show that with training, I've been able to do a lot of amazing things, and that really the brain to this day is the most powerful. The human brain is the most powerful computer on earth, and it's capable of doing things that a lot of people might think to be impossible. My first ever, to answer part of the question, my first ever demonstration was on CNN.
Okay.
Within just a few days of winning the U.S. Memory Championship, they had me on CNN on their morning show, demonstrate remembering a half deck of cards during the commercial break. So I had to basically memorize that when they went on the break for commercial. I had about 2 minutes or less.
Wow.
And then when they came back live on the air, it was live, not recorded, so tons of pressure on me there. I had to recite that perfectly from memory. So I was really nervous. I mean, that was my first ever TV appearance and first ever really, demonstration for a TV audience. So if you watch that clip, it's on the front page of my website as well, in my media reel. If you pay attention to the CNN portions, you might notice that I'm moving the table. I of course didn't know that I was doing it at the time,
Gotcha.
but when I watched it later, I noticed I was nervous. So I was actually moving the table a bit with my hands, just a nervous movement there. Luckily, I was able to pull it off and get it perfect, but it was definitely a nerve-wracking experience. Another thing to note, if you pay attention to that clip, if anyone ends up watching it later on my website, you'll notice that when I'm memorizing the cards, I'm smiling, I'm giggling to myself, because that's actually part of the techniques, part of the training, is to turn remembering things into, rather than a boring and difficult exercise in memory, you change your mindset, really. You change your mindset and approach it more as a fun exercise in just using your creativity and your imagination. So as I'm memorizing those cards, I'm creating a really unusual, crazy story in my mind, and I'm just playing through these crazy scenes in my head. That's one of the techniques that I teach people.
That's crazy because, you never really think about certain nuances like that. So I wonder, is it a situation where if you're smiling and giggling because people want to remember happy things as opposed to boring, mundane things? Is that kind of the thinking behind doing that?
Well, that aspect of the training, there are three main principles that memory champions like myself would always use to pull off these types of memory feats. And one of them that I sort of hit on there is that there is a psychological aspect to human memory. So all of us, with little to no effort at all, we all tend to remember things that catch us by surprise, that are strange, unusual, extraordinary in some way, right? So, Dominic, I don't know where you're at right now, but whatever studio you're in, let's say out of nowhere right now, an elephant just crashed into the room and it started spraying water on you with its trunk. If that actually happened right now, you would probably remember that for the rest of your life and always tell that story.
Oh, absolutely.
For years and years later, you would tell the story. You will never believe this. One morning, I was interviewing this memory guy, and during the interview, an elephant just crashed into my studio, sprayed water all over me. That might be in your head, stuck in your memory really forever.
Oh, for sure. I would tell that story. I would tell that story even if nobody asked me.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be probably stuck there forever without you even really trying to commit that to memory or putting forth any effort at all to commit that to memory. So there is this psychological aspect to human memory, and realizing that, knowing that, you can actually take advantage of it and apply it to things that would be very useful for you to remember as a business person or entrepreneur. Names and faces to get more out of business networking, presentations, facts and figures, exam material if you need certification for your career. There's so many practical applications for an improved ability to remember things, and keeping in mind that psychological aspect to human memory will really help you. So that's one of the main principles that I teach. Another one is just simply turning whatever it is that you want to remember, name, points of a presentation, into visuals. So something that you can picture in your mind, because we are very good at remembering things that we see. That's one important principle. And then a third is also to try, as you can, involve additional senses. So not only see it, but try to taste it, touch it, smell it, because when you do that, you're activating more areas of your brain and you're building more connections in your mind to the information. So it will make it easier to retrieve the information when you need it later on. So those are the three main principles that would always be used, would always be involved with any of the specific memory techniques. And then there are specific techniques depending on the information type.
Got you. Thank you for sharing that, man. That's amazing value, honestly, for sure. So, Startup Nation, Chester mentioned that, that CNN clip on his website. If you go to his website, internationalmanofmemory.com, you can see that, that clip on his website. So you can kind of see when he was moving the table, like he said, or not, for sure. But in addition to being on CNN, man, you've been on quite a few spots. You've been on NBC 2020, like you talked about earlier, Business Week, CBS, and also featured in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal for sure. So those are amazing stuff, man, because not everybody, gets to have that type of platform. So how has that helped you in building your business?
Well, it's helped quite a lot. I mean, I've been very fortunate to be able to make all of those media appearances. It's just really helped me to build up my profile as a memory skills expert. Mm-hmm. I call these memory skills because they are skills really that anyone can develop. So over the years, I've just really built up a resume or profile as a memory skills expert. And it just now of course, it makes it much easier to get booked for conferences and for people, for instance, to take my online trainings and San Francisco workshop, because it gives you credibility. So it's been very useful.
For sure, for sure. Thank you for sharing that. So, man, let's put it to the test, man. I hear that you want to do an exercise with me and Startup Nation real quick.
Yeah, I have a little exercise that I think would be fun for you to go through and for your listeners to follow along with as well. So it will be a visualization type exercise. Just make sure you're paying attention to the road as well as you're just trying to play through this little scenario in your head. I mean, we all do that, I think, while we're driving. You daydream a little bit and you have things running through your head that you can picture. So it shouldn't interfere much. Just be aware of the road as well. What we're going to do is try to put those 3 principles into practice that I talked about: visualization, utilizing additional senses if you can, and making all of that crazy, unusual, extraordinary in some way to take advantage of that psychological aspect to memory. We're going to put that all together and learn something called the story method to memorize a random list of words. So the random word list that you will commit to memory, Dominic, and your listeners as well, it will be monkey, iron, rope, kite, house, paper, shoe, worm, envelope, pencil, river, rock, tree, cheese, and dollar. That's the random list of words. Now, a lot of times when I recite that list of words to audiences, I get people looking at me as if, come on, man, you can't be serious. There's no way I'm going to be able to remember that, not unless you give me a lot of time to do it. But in fact, Dominic, you and your listeners will have that list of words committed to memory perfectly, forwards and backwards, in just about 3 minutes. That's it. And with no further review after today, next week, everyone will still know all of those words, forwards and backwards. How you'll do it, you'll just listen to what I described to you and try to see and experience it in your mind as best you can. So just visualize what I described to you. The first word was monkey, so I just want everybody to picture a monkey, okay? The monkey is dancing around. It is making monkey noises like a monkey would. Whatever a monkey would sound like. I'm working on that monkey impression. The point here is to see and hear the monkey, okay, in your mind. The monkey now picks up a gigantic iron, all right? So it's dancing around now with a giant iron like you would iron your clothes with, because that was the next word. Just see it like a movie or cartoon playing in your head. The iron starts to fall, but a rope attaches itself to the iron. Maybe even feel the rope. Maybe it feels sort of rough. Really try to interact with that rope.
Okay.
You look up the rope, you see the other end of the rope is attached to a kite, and that kite's flying around in the air. Maybe you reach up and try and touch that kite. All right. The kite now crashes into the side of a house. Really see that kite smash into the house. The house, you now notice, it's completely covered in paper. For some strange reason, it's completely covered in paper. Just picture that. The next word I had given you was paper. Out of nowhere, a shoe appears and it starts to walk all over the paper. Maybe it's messing up the paper as it's walking on it, that shoe. Picture that. The shoe smells pretty badly, so you decide to investigate and see why. You look inside of the shoe and you find a little worm crawling around inside of the shoe, a smelly worm. This smelly worm jumps out of the shoe and into an envelope. Maybe it's going to mail itself or something, I don't know, but envelope was next. A pencil appears out of thin air magically, and it starts to write all over the envelope. Maybe it's addressing the envelope, that pencil. Really see the pencil. The pencil now jumps into a river, and there's a huge splash when it hits the river. The river, you notice, is crashing up against a giant rock. It's crashing up against a giant rock. That rock flies out of the river, and it crashes into a tree. Really see it crashing into the tree. You notice that this tree is growing cheese. You probably haven't seen a tree like that before. This one is growing cheese. And out of each piece of cheese shoots $1. The last word that I had given you was dollar. So just see the dollar shoot out of the cheese, okay? Now, you, Dominic, and your listeners, you guys may already know all of the words, but I'm going to go through this again, but very quickly now, super fast. As I do it, just try to replay through this story that you've created in your mind. So we started off with a monkey. The monkey was dancing around with what? An iron.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, what attached itself to the iron? It was a
Rope.
The other end of the rope was attached to what?
A kite.
Kite.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. The kite crashed into what? A house.
Yeah.
What was the house covered in? It was covered in
paper. Yeah.
Yep. What walked on that paper?
Shoe.
It was a
remember
shoe.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. What was crawling in the shoe?
It
was a worm. Good. The worm jumped into what? An envelope.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What wrote on it? A
pencil
wrote on it. The pencil then jumped into what?
The
river.
Mm-hmm.
The river was crashing up against the
rock.
The rock flew into the tree.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was the tree growing?
Cheese. Can't forget that.
And what came out of the cheese? It was a dollar. So now it should be, and now it should be pretty easy to recall the entire random list of words by simply going through the story in your mind and recalling each major object that you encounter as you go through the story. So Dominic, give it a try, and as you go through it, your listeners can try to see if they can recall the words as well. Give it a try.
So I'm telling the story, right?
Yeah, you can do that.
Or you okay? Let's see.
Ideally, try to just give me the words, but if you want to go through the story,
No. I'll do the words. Let's see. It's monkey, iron, rope, kite, house, paper, shoe, worm, envelope. Is it envelope? I think it's envelope.
Yeah.
Pencil, river, rock, tree, cheese. Can't forget cheese because that's crazy. And dollar.
You got 100%, man. That was awesome.
Wow.
Really nice. Great. That was really nice. That was impressive, Dominic, because you did that under the pressure. You know, it's a kind of pressure situation. I sprung it on you during the interview. So great work. And I'm sure that your listeners, most people probably got all of them. If not all of them, I would say most of the words. There was 15 random words there. I would say most people would get at least 10 out of 15 by simply playing back through the story. So that's just one of the techniques that memory champions like myself use and that I teach people. In this case, we use just random words, but it could be used, for instance, to give a presentation, minimizing the amount of notes you would use by basically outlining the presentation and coming up with simple images to represent your point. So if you're going to give a talk about healthcare in the US, maybe your first image is just of a stethoscope, you know, that the doctor would use to check your heartbeat. The next thing you want to talk about during your presentation is the high cost of healthcare in the United States. So maybe $100 bills, Benjamins are shooting out of the stethoscope. Next thing you want to cover in your presentation is that under current healthcare programs, a lot of times, in order to get certain things covered, we have to find a way to cut through a bunch of red tape. Maybe red tape is wrapping itself around the $100 bill. So just a little further explanation as to how something as simple as that story method could be implemented into your career or personal life. And there are many other techniques from there. My online course is like 6 hours of interactive exercises and training.
For sure. Thank you for sharing that. I'll tell you now, I need a Tylenol. My brain hurts for thinking that hard. But no, man, that was crazy. Like I know the cheese one. The cheese one was kind of a lot like the elephant story you tell her. Like that's so crazy. I can't forget that. Right.
Yes.
The other ones.
Yeah. So that's
Go ahead.
That's good. Yeah. That's one of the important principles is taking advantage of that psychological aspect of human memory.
Right. Yeah. For sure. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for sharing that doing that exercise with us. That was fun. That was fun. My head hurts, but that was fun for sure. For sure.
Cool. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
No worries. So let me ask you this, man, because not only do you do TV appearances, you also do speaking engagement. And just to list, you've spoken at Harvard, you've spoken at Stanford, Wells Fargo, and UC Berkeley, and a number of other places, Delta Dental, and stuff like that. So, who was the first person that called you and you was like, wow, man, like this is serious. Like they really want me to come talk to them. Like who was that first phone call? You was like, wow, that's crazy that they're calling. They want me to talk at their university or place of business.
Yeah. So unfortunately, that didn't happen, right? So that's what I thought was going to happen. I thought that I'd win this competition, I'd be on all of these TV shows, get in the Wall Street Journal, things like that, and I thought people would just start calling me up, and it didn't really play out that way. First, I had, in the speaking world, you have to have a speaker kit. There's this thing called a speaker sheet, which you have my speaker sheet, I know. And, in order to develop those important marketing items, you need to already have some of these big, engagements on there. So I really had to reach out to people, and how it really played out is in the beginning, it took me years to build up the resume that I have now, the speaker sheet that I have now with some, I'm fortunate to have some pretty amazing speaking engagements under my belt. But really how I went about it in the early years was I would reach out to people and I would have to agree to do the presentation for, just in some cases for free. They would just cover travel expenses or at a low cost, much lower than I'm charging nowadays, in order to get those engagements booked and under my belt so I could build up the resume. So really, it wasn't people were immediately calling me up just because I was on all these shows and things. I still had to really reach out. Nowadays, it actually, thank goodness, works that way, that a lot of times people are reaching out to me. Really almost every day I'm getting inquiries now, but I've been in the speaking world for 10 plus years at this point.
Gotcha. I'm sorry. I guess I was asking, like, when you start getting those calls on the regular, right? Like, I know you had to build up that stuff like that. When you start getting those calls on the regular, I guess I'm asking, like, who was that institution or that corporation to where you was like, I never thought they would call me. Like, like, I guess I'm curious about like that moment. If that makes sense.
I would say, I understand what you're asking. I think it wasn't so much for me an organization per se, in that at that point I had already done, Harvard. I had already done some really big speaking engagements by the time the calls started coming to me first. Like, the Harvard thing, I was in communication with them for like years, like the discussions and emails and all that, until it finally got booked. But I guess the surprising one was when I first started getting international invitations, where people in other countries, it wasn't necessarily the organization, but the fact that there was interest in having me speak, for instance, in Germany. And that actually came about. A lot of my international engagements have come from first talking to the arm or leg of the organization that is in the United States at the U.S. conference or U.S. event. And then they, if they like it a lot, then I'll be invited to speak at their other conferences around the world, other corporate events around the world. So I guess that was the one that really, I had a strong reaction to it. I couldn't believe I got invited to give a speech in Germany at one point.
Gotcha.
Now I've done more than 30 countries, but that first international engagement, I guess, was a big one.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Thank you for sharing that. Last question before we go to break, man. So, I know you have a book, Instant Memory Training for Success, Practical Techniques for a Sharper Mind. I know you have that book, and that Startup Nation, you can purchase that book on Amazon. The link is in the show notes for easy access. But by the time this episode airs, Chester, you'll have a new book, Mastering Memory, that comes out, I believe, March 15th.
So actually, it came out already. So it's already out. That I don't know what that March 15th date is. It could be maybe a new version. I don't have control of the release dates. It's the publisher. So that could possibly be like a new Audible version or Kindle version. I'm not sure, but the print version of the book actually came out last year. And it's currently, I mean, one way to get it for sure is Amazon. Amazon.com. For the other book, it's easier to get it in the UK, so I would recommend ordering it from the Amazon UK website, Instant Memory Training for Success. That one was a bestseller. It was in the airport bookstores right next to Harry Potter at one point. And the new book, which came out last year, is currently in just about every Barnes and Noble across the US. So if you go into your local Barnes and Noble store, you'll see it. You'll see it there.
Gotcha. And I do apologize to you, Chester, and to you, Startup Nation. I got some bad information on that one. So we'll have those links in the show notes for easy access to purchase both of those books for you to kind of master your memory and stuff like that. So I appreciate you clearing that up, Chester, for sure.
Oh, yeah, no problem. It could be very well. There's something that the publisher is releasing in March that I'm not aware of. It might be some sort of digital version, but the print version came out last year. In addition, if people want to follow me, my handle is Chester J. Santos on Instagram and Twitter, and I post weekly tips. They're just 1-minute tips from various locations around the world every week. Interesting locations. So you might see me at the Colosseum in Rome, talking about how the Roman orators gave speeches hours in length from memory without notes. And in my online courses, I would actually teach you the technique that Cicero himself used to give presentations. So look out for that if people want just quick 1-minute tips each week from Instagram and Twitter.
Oh, wow. Thank you for sharing that. So we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. How you like being on the Startup Life so far, Chester?
Oh, it's great. Thank you. I'm really enjoying it.
All right, Startup Nation. So I hope you're getting great value from Chester's content, but we got to pay a few bills. Once again, my name is Dominic Lawson. This is the Startup Life Podcast, and it is powered by the Binge Podcast Network. Hey business owner, the Startup Life reach is growing. Wouldn't you like your business to grow with it? Reach out to us to advertise on the Startup Life. You can reach us at 901-857-4818, or you can email me at dominic@askalsolutions.com. I mean, don't get me wrong, like this is a great music to have break on, but wouldn't this break sound a lot better with the same music but your business being advertised on it? Need more content from the Startup Life, you say? You can now sign up for the Startup Life All Access Pass on the Binge Podcast Network's Patreon page. There is exclusive content written by yours truly, video content where I share even more of my business philosophies, and whatever crazy content I can think of out of that crazy head of mine. And at only $5 a month, yeah, $5 a month, this is more content for you, Startup Nation, to really get ahead of your competition. So instead of upsizing that meal at your favorite fast food joint, you can now invest in yourself on your path to entrepreneurship. Click the link in the show notes to sign up.
All right, Startup Nation, so let's continue. So Chester, man, when we go to internationalmanofmystery.com. You can sign up for a free video memory lesson. Tell us what kind of value we'll get from that lesson, man.
Yeah, so if you sign up at internationalmanofmemory.com, you'll
Memory,
enter
yes,
your
I'm sorry. My
yeah, no
apologies.
problem. International Man of Memory. Everybody makes that. A lot of people mistakenly think it's International Man of Mystery. It's okay. Internationalmanofmemory.com. Yeah, right on the front page, you'll enter your email address in, and it's going to be just a very basic lesson, about 20 minutes long, that will go through additional exercises that really introduce those main principles in more detail, and it will have you commit some things to memory, and then it will give you the opportunity after you complete that lesson to see if you want to go through the full training course on my website, which is about 6 hours of interactive training.
Gotcha. And once again, Startup Nation, you can find that on internationalmanofmemory.com, not mystery, internationalmanofmemory.com. And also, Startup Nation, for those of you who have medium to large size businesses, or if you're at a business and you feel like your company can benefit from some memory training from Chester, you can book him on the website as well. And we have the link in the show notes for easy access for internationalmanofmemory.com. So Chester, you mentioned those products that you have, those lessons, those courses that you have, share us the value, not only just the value that Startup Nation gets, if they were to come on there, but also talk about how, you came up with the pricing for those, because that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with when you talk about pricing for products. What was your pricing process for coming up with the price for those things?
Really just looking at other online course pricing. Mine's about middle of the range.
Okay.
I would say. So just really looking at other online course pricing. Mine is $250. There are similar, courses on personal development. That's the category that mine is in, personal development and or professional development. There are courses that can be $500 or $600. There are some that are only $100. So mine's toward more the mid-range at $250, and it's really to help you develop skills that will benefit you for the rest of your life in your career and in your personal life as well. It will help you to get more out of on-the-job training. So memory really is fundamental to learning. So it's going to help you more easily learn any type of new information. And so if you are in the corporate environment, a lot of times your company will send you to trainings. You'll get more out of those future trainings by first completing my training. And that's why companies would a lot of times bring me in to train their employees so that they'll get more out of future trainings. Giving presentations, remembering names to get more out of business networking and to build better relationships with people in general. There is interactive training via the course. Part of it is a slideshow with pictures, and I give you the name. So you'll see a picture. This is Nancy. This is John. This is Bob. So it's very interactive training. You will really develop that ability to better remember people's names. And then we cover foreign language vocabulary. You'll learn Korean in the course, but learn how to apply the techniques to any foreign language. We'll actually go through sample presentations. We will go through sample exam material. So you will be clear on how to apply the various techniques that you're learning to many different information types.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. So Chester, in 2013, man, you took on a mentee, Harry Villegas, right? Harry was struggling with dyslexia and attention deficit disorder. And he said that you really helped him overcome those challenges, man. So, in entrepreneurship, we always talk about the mentor-mentee relationship. But what I want to know from you, man, is what did Harry teach you as you mentored him?
Really, working with Harry taught me a little bit more about different learning styles. So it's really benefited me to have helped him, and that it comes up a lot. at my presentations during the Q&A period, I will be asked how these techniques can possibly help people with ADHD and dyslexia. So me having spent so much time working with Harry has really helped me to better understand how to help people with those conditions. One great thing about what I teach and how it can help people with ADHD and dyslexia is that they tend to be very strong visual learners.
Okay.
And as you already note, a lot of what I am teaching is visualization, visual based. So people with ADHD and dyslexia tend to do very well with the types of techniques that I train people with.
Got you. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that for sure. So, man, I saw in January that you had 17 speeches scheduled. So between, speaking engagements and traveling all around the world, man, how do you manage your time?
It ended up being 20 in the end.
Oh, wow.
I ended up booking a few more in January after that one got posted. How do I manage my time? I really I guess, one thing that I do is I just, when I have things scheduled, I give it my all, and I just give it that 1 hour speech, this 1 hour interview, whatever it might be. I really give that just 100% of my focus and attention. And although I may have 20 other things scheduled in that day, I don't really let it distract me. And I think that's been a key to doing really well and still providing a lot of great value to people, even though I'm much, much busier nowadays than I was in the beginning.
I hear that. I actually ascribe to that doctrine as well. So I appreciate you sharing that for sure. So, Chester,
I guess,
go ahead.
I wanted to add something there. I guess just
sure.
Try not to be distracted when you have a lot of other things going on. Really try to make that effort to be focused on one thing at a time. And that also applies to memory and the learning. There was a few years back a big article in the New York Times about how this generation, we are very distracted because we have that Facebook notification going off, the Twitter, the Instagram. We're pulled in so many different directions. We're trying to multitask, and it is hurting people's ability to learn, because for effective learning and memory, you really need to be able to focus on one thing at a time. And I can say that can also be trained. You can get into the habit of doing it, and you'll get better at that over time. So sorry to I just wanted to add a little bit to my answer there.
No, absolutely. No, I appreciate that for sure. Thank you so much for that. So, Chester, man, you may not, you probably don't know this. Well, of course you don't know it because I'm telling you right now. So, I'm based here in Memphis, Tennessee. The Startup Life powered by the Binge Podcast Network is based in here in Tennessee. So that's my largest listenership, right? But a close second is actually where you are, my friend, in the San Francisco, Oakland market. That's where my second largest listenership is. So, I know that you have a monthly workshop there, man. Tell people about your monthly workshop that you have there in the Bay Area and what the kind of value they get out of that.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, I did not realize that you had a large listenership here in the Bay Area.
Shocked me too, man.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I do teach a 1-day workshop, so I'm all over the world for the speaking engagements, but I make it a priority to always free up one Saturday per month to teach the full day workshop. I've actually had people from all over the U.S. attend the workshop because it's one of the only ones like it in the entire world, but mostly, obviously, people from somewhere from the San Francisco Bay Area attend it. It covers all of the material that I mentioned for the online course. It's the same content, improving your memory in general, remembering any type of information that contains numbers, presentations, foreign language vocabulary exam material, all of that. But it's live in-person instruction from me. So I will actually be there myself teaching the workshop. It's usually taught at a conference room in the San Francisco Tennis Club, which is a big tennis club that is near the ballpark, the baseball park in the south of Market area of San Francisco. One Saturday per month, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., and it covers all of that, the content that I went over earlier. Yeah, and anybody can register for it on my website.
Gotcha. And once again, you can go to internationalmanofmemory.com to register for that monthly workshop that he has for my Bay Area Startup Nation listeners for sure. Thank you for sharing that, Chester. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for pointing out to me that a lot of people would be listening to this in the San Francisco Bay Area. One further clarification on the website, that workshop is listed under the events tab.
Okay.
So under the events tab, you'll find the info for the San Francisco workshop.
Got you. Thank you for sharing that for sure. So, man, look, let me ask you something real quick, because I see a lot of pictures of you, man, and you always rocking a nice hat. So is that part of the brand of the International Man of Memory, or you've always had that sense of style, man?
No, I didn't always have that sense of style. So one year I just became really serious about branding. So I hired a branding team, and they did a lot of different things. And even part of that involved hiring a stylist to come up with the look for the International Man of Memory.
Right.
So that's kind of the look that the stylist came up with. And I just ended up really liking it myself. So now I have, well, at one point I had more than 30 hats. I had to get rid of some of them because I ran out of place to store all the hats. But
Gotcha.
yeah, I have tons of those style hats, and I just really like that look. I get a lot of compliments at events because I dress in a way that is very professional looking, clean looking, but at the same time, it's a little bit more memorable than everybody that's wearing the straight up suits at corporate events.
For sure. No, I'm rocking. I'm loving your hat game, man. It's sick. It's awesome. Seriously, for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
It's one of the first things I noticed, man. And it really does speak to the brand, man. It kind of, and that's why I keep adding that mystery part, screwing up your website, internationalmemory.com, by the way, Startup Nation. But nah, man, like it really plays up to that whole kind of mystique, if you will. I'm digging it, man. Your stylist did a great job for sure, at least in my opinion, of course.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
No worries. So, man, look, your craft of memorization and then teaching people, about, having a stronger memory and stuff like that, man, it's taking you to some amazing places, like literally all over the world. And it's something we try to relay to Startup Nation is that if you have a craft or a goal, and if you pursue it with reckless abandon, like how you talked about, when you won the championship in 2008, then you'll be, you'll be amazed at the unexpected places that it'll take you. So, Chester, have you ever just sat by yourself and just took it all in, man, and you just thought about the journey from the beginning, flipping the channels, coming across 2020 up until now, man? What emotions come to mind when you think about that, man?
Yeah, it's hard to believe really how far I've been able to come. I mean, it's just incredible to think about where I was in the beginning, how hard it was in 2008, and everything I've been able to do since then, and how things are different now. It's just it's amazing. I mean, it's a little mind blowing to me what I've been able to do. I just recently got my third passport, and they made me, they highly recommended anyway that this time I get the really big, the giant book, because I filled up the last one so quickly.
Right.
So now I have the passport with the extra pages in there. It's just amazing, everything I've been able to see, all of the amazing places around the world I've been able to visit. And I've just had so many cool experiences. I can hardly believe it.
Gotcha, man. Well, I can tell you, sitting from my vantage point, it seems like it's been one hell of a ride, man. Kudos to you and your craft. I appreciate that for sure.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
No worries. So, man, I believe all entrepreneurs have a superpower, man. Besides an amazing memory, man, what's your superpower?
I really think it is. I think I had thought about that before, actually.
Okay.
What my superpower might be in my business, and I think it's what I mentioned. It's probably why I went back and wanted to add more to my answer on, how do I manage things with, a lot of things going on, especially in January, which was incredibly busy for me. I think the superpower is that ability to just temporarily get rid of all of the distractions and just focus on that one thing that I'm doing 100% and just, ignore the 20 other things I might have to do that day, but just really give that one presentation and interacting with people at that event 100% of my attention, just ignoring any other, phone calls, text notifications, important things I have going on later that evening, or, just really that ability to focus on one thing at a time and give it 100% of my attention, I think is something that has helped me a lot, and that a lot of people aren't able to do that. They're more easily distracted.
Gotcha. Thank you for sharing that, man. Like I said, I ascribe to that same doctrine, so I know exactly what you're talking about. So I appreciate that. So before I ask the last question, man, I just want to say once again, thank you so much, Chester Santos, for coming on the Startup Life, powered by the Binge Podcast Network. I think you gave amazing value with your content and your story and your journey. It's been amazing to kind of chop it up with you for the past hour here, brother. I appreciate that. So with that being said, man, last thing I want to ask you, I'm actually going to give the microphone to you, man, because there's an entrepreneur out there who's afraid to start their business. They're afraid to go out and jump out off of their ledge and start their company or roll with their idea or whatever the case may be. Give them some words of advice, some words of encouragement to tell them that, man, you should go for it.
Yes, definitely. I'd love to. Really what I can say, the best piece of advice I can give, and I'm sure a lot of people have also given the same advice, and that is to just really believe in yourself and what you're doing, and just ignore any people that might not be supporting you, maybe not, that don't fully understand your vision, and just really dedicate yourself and focus on what it is you want to accomplish, and keep going, persevere, even if at certain times you're struggling and things are really tough. Just try your best, although it's not always easy. Just keep pushing on. When I told my friends and family that I was quitting my job as a software engineer in the Silicon Valley area, which is a really solid job, to go into this memory training, really everyone thought that I was completely insane. And no one really understood the vision of, what I had in mind that I wanted to do. And I was very discouraged by multiple family members, by many friends. I was really, really discouraged, and it was really difficult when things weren't going well. I was tempted, sometimes the thought popped into my head, maybe they're right, this is a dumb idea, but I really pushed those thoughts out of my head and really had to focus on believing in myself. And now everyone is, now they're amazed at what I've been able to accomplish, and now they understand what it is that I had envisioned in the first place. But I had to really push through the tough times and just keep going.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that story and that wrap up for sure. So that's going to do it for this session of the Startup Life. How did you enjoy being on the show, Chester?
I really enjoyed it a lot. I loved the variety of the types of questions that you ask. It gave me an opportunity to share with people many different types of things that I think could help them out in their career and personal life. It was a great interview. I really enjoyed it. Thank you, Dominic.
All right, Startup Nation.
So here's my final take. Chester brings something very interesting to the startup life, Startup Nation, and that is this. On your path to entrepreneurship and as you're scaling your business, sometimes we always talk about professional development, right? But sometimes there takes a different type of professional development to really scale and grow your company. It could be improving your memory like Chester kind of does with his clients, or it can be improving something else. The point is, this episode really speaks to always sharpening the saw. It's one of those things that entrepreneurs have to constantly get better at improving themselves, improving their skill set, which ultimately improves their business and their path to entrepreneurship. So Startup Nation, if you're out there and you're feeling stuck in your business or something like that, think about improving your memory or some other type of professional development. Trust me, you'll be the better for it, and your company will be too. If you want to let us know what you think about the show, have an idea for a show topic, or like to advertise on our show, please send us a message on the Startup Life Podcast Facebook page. And while you are there, like and follow our page as well. It's a way for us to engage with you, Startup Nation, and really grow our community. The link is here in the show notes. Subscribe to the show, as it can now be heard on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, or whatever your favorite platform to get your podcast on. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts and you find our content valuable, please give us a 5-star rating, as it will help us climb the charts and help more people find our show. Also, don't forget to sign up for the Startup Life All Access Pass to get exclusive content. This is exclusively on the Binge Podcast Network's Patreon page. And hey, if you have an idea, be about that life, the Startup Life. Let me guess. You here for some extra content, huh? Okay, I don't want to disappoint you. Here you go.
Okay, I'm running this company. I have knowledge here. I probably could use help, but I don't want to pay anyone else to do something that I could do. So my entire first year was, I think I took a stint where I tried hiring some like $14 an hour interns to help me out, but it ultimately wasn't very helpful because once finals and midterms come up, interns disappear. So I think my biggest misstep would have been, during that first year, I was working till 2 and 3 a.m. every day, losing hair and gaining weight, and not getting the help I needed, thinking that I could do it all myself.
Startup Nation, that's my guy, AJ Wilcox, the LinkedIn guru out of Utah. So if you want to get that episode as soon as it uploads, go ahead and subscribe to the Startup Life Podcast on all of your major podcast platforms. So that way, when AJ's episode is released, you'll have it right there waiting for you. But until then, Startup Nation, you got a company that's waiting for you. Let's go work on it.